last video, we talked about choose your hard, so making the right decision so that later on life gets easier. Not all women have a chocolate stash at home, but I know some women do, and they know at home they have their chocolate, they're going to get to it, maybe use it as a reward. They go through the day, maybe they see an advertisement for chocolate, or their colleagues say, let's get some a chocolate cookie, chocolate donut, or something chocolatey. But they know, no, I have my stash at home. I'm gonna wait till I'm home. I need to be disciplined, and I have that all ready there, and we'll just go with that. And you wait and wait throughout the day, probably exaggerating a little, but you get excited. You get home, you go to get your chocolate, and there's a note that says, I have a headache. Okay, so that was actually my introduction to talk about sex. But trying to relate to how men view sex, or what they deal with. Like there's advertisements for sex all throughout the day, and no, we're gonna wait. I have my wife at home, and I'll only have sex with my wife, and try to focus on that. And then they get home, and your wife has a headache. I hope some of you laughed. It's not. It's much better if there's an audience where I can gauge if you got that or not. But if you didn't, if I offended you, I'm sorry. Sex for men is really important, and I hope for women as well. It's important that you see it as a priority. I think, at least for my marriage, that sex is the thermometer of how it's going. We're going to look at a few different things on this topic. One is from the book Women and Sex. It has 7 lies. I think she has more in it, but I picked out these 7. Number 1, sex is impure and wrong and shameful. That's a lie. God created sex. It's for our good. Number 2, it is sinful to have sexual desire. No, because you can desire your spouse, and I hope that you do desire your spouse. Porn messes that up for men. It messes it up a lot. And the culture, the advertisement in the culture, probably messes it up for the women as well. Just the media, books, novels, movies that come out, and we just get these twisted views of sex and desire. Number 3, sex doesn't need to be a priority. It's not a big deal. When it works, and that's fine. Really, I look at it as energy. You have energy to live your life, and you prioritize that energy for things that you want. What are you using your energy for? Men, you have a certain amount of energy. I mean, men always have energy for sex, pretty much. But your wife also has a certain amount of energy. If she's running crazy and you're not helping her, or you're not helping her organize her time, her priorities, so that she does have energy to have sex later, then you need to get on that. You need to help out. If you need to do laundry, or do something, help out with the kids or something, so that she can prioritize having energy for you. Number 4, if you ignore your husband's sex desire, he will forget about it and will go away. Okay, back to the chocolate example. The advertisement's all there. It's hard for him. Hopefully, men, we can work on that. Just, it's not all about sex. Life isn't all about like getting it all the time. If there is neglect there, that can build up resentment, and there can be problems. I know that in my marriage, I would make do about other things, but the underlying issue was not having sex, and it was wrong on my part. Men do work that way, and that's just reality. But men, we can do better. It doesn't have to be that way. I'll talk more about that later. Number 5, denying sex to your spouse is not a sin. Okay, look up 1 Corinthians 7. It talks about that. Just deciding together about when you can't do it, when you can't have sex. Number 6, sex is for fulfilling my own desires. Okay, here's where the gospel really comes in. And I know it's weird saying the gospel fits into sex, but really we should be looking to serve. So in the gospel, Jesus serves us. Philippians 2 talks about Jesus' example of being a servant. And right before that, it talks about fulfilling others' desires. Or that sounds a little off when I'm talking about sex, but basically serving others and laying down your own rights, laying down your own desires, and fulfilling the other person's. And in marriage, we really should be looking to serve each other. Number 7, if you do not have fabulous experiences every time there is a problem between you, yeah, it doesn't always have to be great, and it takes a while. I read it or something. The best years for sex are between 16 and 24 years of marriage, and that's interesting. It takes time to develop that, and that's so true. Like, getting to know each other and communicating is so important. Men, marriage isn't all about having sex. There's more to marriage than that. Sex is another way to serve my spouse. Is that a priority for me, serving my spouse, or is it getting my desires? Sex is a way to give preference to my spouse and serve her in a God-honoring way, or serve him in a God-honoring way. What do women need for sex? A lot of this part comes from Laughing Your Way to a Better Marriage, and some of the statistics or ideas here come from that. If you want to hear that, you can search it on YouTube. But it says women need time, ambiance, good manners, cleanliness, exclusivity, privacy to get in the mood. Okay, the average time for a woman to have orgasm is 14 minutes. Now the average time for sex is 2 minutes. Which means what? The women aren't getting as much pleasure on average, by far. Okay? So she's not going to have as much enjoyment. And so what do we need to do to get it to where she is having more enjoyment? You need to focus on her and communicate. What does she like? What doesn't she like? What's she comfortable with? Maybe she needs certain smells or something, but you need to communicate and figure out what works. Another thing, there's a phrase, sex starts in the kitchen. It might have been a book or something, but I think that's so true. Like, not necessarily the kitchen, but outside of the bedroom. How are you treating your wife throughout the day? If you are constantly angry, responding poorly, not touching her, staying away from her, ignoring her, what changes when you get into the bedroom? Why do you think she's all of a sudden going to be head over heels for you? Okay, there should be the same compassion, love, affection, communication outside of the bedroom as there is inside. So start preparing now for sex. Giving that comfort, loving, a consistently loving atmosphere where she feels safe and protected. That should be a priority for you. Another thing, as far as the 14 minutes and 2 minutes, if a man hasn't had sex for I think 72 hours, then it's going to go really quick. It's hard for him to keep that in. And so if you say, well, the once a month when we have sex, he just goes right away, so he's not caring about me. Well, physically, biologically, it's very hard to keep that in. And so you should be, or I think ideally, I'm trying to stay away from saying how many times, but basically having consistent sex, it will get better for the wife. It should get better for the wife if there's consistency there. And men, if you're being unselfish, taking more time and loving her, giving more affection. Where do desires come from in men? Men are stimulated by what they see. So men, you have to protect what you are looking at. Porn is a big no. Looking with lust is a big no. Stay away from that. Women are more stimulated by touch and connectedness. One author, no, it was a video I was watching, said his sex life improved a ton when he sat down. He decided he was gonna sit down and talk to his wife for 20 minutes or an hour each night. Maybe go for a walk together and just focus on her. Put your phone down. Have a good conversation with her. He did it just with the intention of communicating well, but what it did for his sex life, he said, well, I would have, if I knew that, I would have started that earlier. For sex, we are dependent on each other. We can't have it without the other. Same thing with the gospel. We are dependent on Christ. God created us to live in relationship, and so it's very important that we have that, and we are communicating well. Paul Tripp has a lot to say about marriage, and I think a lot of the material here is influenced by him. But if you have Right Now Media, in the series 33 on marriage, it's a men's study on marriage. It's lesson 4 that I think it's called Intimacy, and at minute 1932 he talks about sex being an act of worship. That's kind of tough to understand. What? It's an act of worship? That's weird. But basically, Sarah explained it to me. She said, what do I want the most? Do I want to please God or please my desires? So am I worshiping sex or worshiping my wife, or am I worshiping God and seeking to please God in everything? If I'm seeking to please God, I'm living out the gospel. I'm seeking to please my spouse, and that's so important. That principle goes throughout this whole workshop, that we should be sacrificing our desires, seeking to do what is right, or what my spouse desires, or basically not living for myself and being selfish. Okay. Is sex a way for me to lovingly serve my wife? To do that, we need to communicate what does serve my wife. Okay, so there's an article actually in that study on 33 that's on Right Now Media. It says there's a list written in an article by Shayla Ray Gregoire of helpful ways to help your wife get in the mood. Basically, what's the secret to turning her on? And she says, we don't know. We don't know what that secret is. It's a mixture of emotional, hormonal, romantic, spiritual elements. So all that. So so basically, my mentality isn't as much as what do I need to do today to have sex tonight or in the morning. It's more how do I create a marriage environment where she is safe and protected and loved, secure, all that. So focus more on just overall marriage rather than a specific day, for example. Because I've done that in the past, and basically, I got her flowers today. Why didn't I have sex tonight? Or I did this for her. Why didn't that happen? The way you touch or all that. Gave her a massage tonight and nothing. And then the other night, it was great because of that. So what's going on? Well, we can't get frustrated with just one specific circumstance or night or time. Think about, how do I create that environment? So she has eight elements on this list. Is number 1, tell your wife she is beautiful. 2, touch her without expecting it to go anywhere. Don't increase her exhaustion. Talk to her. Figure out what feels good to her. Trash the porn. That is not helpful. Be clean. Clean is sexy. And love her anyway. So that's a good list from a woman. So I'm just passing it on. If it's wrong, take it up with her. But that's just a few things, and I hope that's helpful for you.